Welcome back to the channel, Lockup Legends and Lessons. I wanted to talk about one of the three primary routines that you have to prepare yourself for as soon as you cross that boundary heading into state prison, county jail, federal prison, wherever it may be. Once you're incarcerated, there are three particular routines that you need to establish as soon as you come in so that they don't cause you problems later on. You're basically doing a scouting mission to see what's safe, what's not safe, what you can do, what you can't. It's like going to another country and learning the cultures and the customs. The one that I'd like to speak about today has to do strictly with the shower routine. The other two that I mentioned are the chow hall and the yards. Those are things you just kind of have to figure out the lay of the land to see where to step, when to step, who not to step across, and it'll make your time a little bit easier. The shower setup is different in every institution that you go to. When you start out, usually you're locked up and held in a local facility, whether it's a city or the county. For me, it was the county jail, and there was two separate county jails that I did the first year of my incarceration in. These were both similar to each other, but with slight differences. The first county jail I spent some time in, I wasn't there for a very long period because I had co-defendants, and they were worried about us speaking to each other or coordinating stories, I guess. So got moved around to another institution. At first I was bummed out because they sent me to another spot, which in turn came out to be a much better place to do my time. So I was fortunate in that aspect, but they both had similar setups when it comes to the shower. There were no curtains in these things. They were just like an alcove where you kind of would go into it. There was a brick wall, a cinder block concrete wall that would stick out for a little bit of a partition so you could walk in, and around the corner there's a small area. There are no baths. Let me preface this as well. There are zero baths in prison. Like, I never saw one. Maybe there was on a medical tier or something like that. Never saw of it, never heard of it. All showers, stand-up shower stalls. But before you get in the shower, you better get yourself a pair of prison slips, shower shoes. These things are an absolute necessity. You do not want to walk into those showers. There are some funky, dirty, nasty people. Their showers don't get cleaned too well. You don't go in barefoot. I don't think I've ever taken a shower in prison where I didn't have my shower shoes on. You've seen them on TV most likely. They're like the little orange prison slips. I mean, everyone has them. That's the one thing that, besides the uniform, that every inmate has in prison. And if you didn't, then you're just a dirty Viking. I don't know what to tell you. Next thing to check off, do you get in the shower naked or do you wear some underwear? Personally, I wore underwear because I realized I didn't want anybody looking at me. I didn't want anyone seeing anything I had going on unless they absolutely had to. I had enough strip searches throughout the years that were, degrading at first, and you just get used to it at some point. It's not even a big deal. But I didn't go out promoting any kind of unwanted behavior towards me. So I made sure I always had, wear your underwear, your dirty underwear into the shower. And you would just shower with those on. And you got your slips, keep your underwear on. Not everybody does. Most people do. I did for the duration of my time. So in the county jail, when the showers were being used, everything inside, if it was a fixture of some sort where you had the shower head coming out, or the knobs like you would have at home, you could turn them. There wasn't anything like that. You had one jet stream kind of like shower head coming out of the top, and there was a button that you would press. There's no twist and dialing of the temperatures. You would press a very small button, and it was on a timer, so it would start the cycle, and it would run for maybe, 30 seconds, because people would flood the showers out sometimes, try to flood the tier, so you'd have to keep pressing it. And you could find ways to hold it in. You get like if there was a small little gap inside of there, you could get like a piece of a plastic spoon and wedge it in if there's just enough clearance, and it would stay in. So there's workarounds for just about everything in prison. But you don't get to control the temperature. It's just kind of rolling the dice. You're going to go in and you get what you get. You press the button, and if you want to shower and it's the middle of winter and you're getting cold water, then you're going to be quick. I mean, some people might just splash a little bit of baby powder on after that, but not me. I'd take the cold shower and just scram as quick as you can. You learn to take them fast and get moving. The shower temperature was controlled by the officers, usually outside of the tier. They would be able to pop one of those chase doors open, and they could adjust it if it was too hot or too cold. Usually they would listen, like if it was way too cold and it became the winter time, they would do something about it. But you had some guards, they just didn't care. They just, you'd have to wait for the right one to come around. The right CO comes on shift. You can get them to adjust the water, but a lot of times they'll come in and be like, all right, does everybody want this water hotter or colder? And those guys were, had a little bit more respect for them than the guys who just, they didn't care if you were getting scorched in the summer or frozen in the winter. Someone would intentionally mess with it, which is pretty uncool, but what are you going to do? Catch a charge for beating up police? Just go take a shower, get it done. There's not much you can do. It's not worth fighting the police over something that you can't change in that position. So just get your shower done, get out of there, move it along, and wait for the right one to come around to ask. In the county jail, there are no shower curtains. There's nothing to block you. It's just an empty block doorway. There's also no time limits in the shower, unless it's coming to count time when everybody has to go back to their cells. Some guys would stay in there for a really long time, which, it could be annoying when you had two showers, one top tier, one bottom tier, and they're just being held up for extended periods of time by guys who, I don't even want to know what they're doing in there, but nothing normal. So there's no time limits in there. It can be kind of a nuisance, but you get a little bit more freedom than, say, in the prison structure, to take your shower a little bit longer if you so choose. So next on the stop was the state prison that I went to. After the county jail time was completed and I got my sentence passed down, they brought me to MRDCC, got processed, and sent to the prison that you're going to be residing at. It was much different than the county jail. And this was where I had to kind of survey to see what was going on because I wasn't sure how it went. I didn't want to walk into the shower with a bunch of guys that you don't want to be in the shower with. There was certain people, certain individuals, you wait till they're done before you get washed off. The institution where I spent the majority of my time up in Western Maryland it had a shower area up top and down bottom of each tier. There's 4 tiers in a housing unit, so each one had 3 shower heads, so you'd have 3 guys at a time, and there was a structured time limit there. It was about 15 minutes, and they would keep the rec hall doors closed. So if you're in there waiting for your turn to come up, it would be about 15 minutes, and then bump, every quarter hour they'd pop the door, showers. So those guys would be coming out, and you'd be going in. They don't always come out, so it could be, a bit of a traffic jam. But it was more regimented. Prison was much more regimented than the county jail in several ways, and that routine was something that you could rely on in a place of massive levels of uncertainty every day. You don't know what you're going to be waking up to. So the schedule kept a lot of people sane, and it kept them kind of grounded in a weird way. Prison didn't have shower curtains, but they had these like meat locker plastic slab kind of things. Like if you've ever seen like where you go into a deli or a butcher or something at the grocery store and they have those plastic slats that kind of come down, you can push your cart through or whatever and they slide out of the way. That's what it was. So it kept water inside and they were clear plastic so you could see through them. Same thing with the button. There was no knobs to, let me get it just right, hot. No, I want it a little colder today. But the guards were a lot cooler in prison about setting it to a manageable temperature. They kept it within like a spec. I don't know what it was exactly, but it was pretty much within that all the time. So that was nice, not having that like a Siberian ice bath. So it was much more humane. Each cell in prison has 2 plastic chairs, and you and your cell buddy have your own chair, And when you go out to the rec hall, you go ahead and get your shower bag. It looked like a laundry net bag, and you would just put whatever you needed into that. Some guys would use a pillowcase, and they called it their shower grip. So you'd have your shower shoes, you might have your shaving razor. A lot of guys would shave their head entirely in there. And deodorant, your soap, shampoo, or body wash, washcloth. So you'd have your shower grip. And it was, you could tell when that would be in a chair, there'd be chairs lined up in the rec hall, that meant you were next. So it kind of was like, it was a placeholder. And you could tell by seeing, the shower grip would be in there with the shower shoes. Okay, it's not just a chair sitting along the wall. That man's lined up for the next round. As I mentioned, there are three heads in each stall that you would go in. So there are usually only 3 people in there. But once the yard would let out, there was about 15 minutes in the time before you come back in from the yard. They'd corral everybody back to your housing unit or your particular tier in the housing unit, and you'd have those few minutes. People would bum rush the shower, especially in the summertime because it's really hot and there's no air conditioning. It gets really, really hot and sweaty on the tier, and it's you're working out in July outside, lifting weights all afternoon. You won't come in stinking and smelly. It was a free for all to climb in and get cleaned up. Like it was not for the faint of heart. It took me probably about 30 days before I ventured to jump into this. Like it was like people packed into sardines. It'd be like 9 people in there, and it was like a round robin kind of thing. Like you go in, you got your soap, your shampoo, whatever. You hit the water. You kind of keep coming around. Get done real quick. I mean, you might be in there like 5 or 6 minutes because by the time you come in, grab your stuff after the yard, hop in there and get out, you have to be back in your cell before that door shuts, or you could get written up and catch you a ticket. So everybody was quick about it, and there'd be a lot of people in there, sometimes more than 9 head, and that's a lot of dudes in the shower. And it was not like, oh please sir, you're next. Oh why thank you. Let me climb under the shower now. It was very it was very wild. I mean, you just had to get in there. You had to get in there, and it's just one of those things you got to bite the bullet and push through if you want to get cleaned up, because it might be 3, 4, 5 hours before you come out again. You might get locked down right afterwards, and so you just never know. So after I got back to court after several years and was able to get my time knocked down to a number where I ended up doing 7.5 on it, they reclassified my security level. So I bypassed medium at this point and went straight to minimum after some time had gone by, and I got my reclassification, which was a yearly process. They would go through it. You meet certain requirements and you can move to the next level, on the way out the door, which is what you want if you're trying to get to pre-release is the goal, because you can go work and stack some cash up, and it's a little bit better than just getting dropped on the street with a couple ramen noodles and $40 gate money. The minimum institution I was at it was the worst shower setup and scenario of all the places I've been to. Everyone told me how great minimum was, and I hated minimum security. I absolutely hated it. I wanted to go back to the mountains. I wanted my cell where I could shut the door. I wanted my locker. Minimum was just absolute trash. Couldn't stand it. Hated my job. I was working overnight in the bakery shift. So you're in a room or a pod with 3 or 4 other guys. So there can be a total of 4 to 5 people in each pod. And there's no doors. It's just giant open doorways. And working overnight was just, it was a nightmare. It was nice. I liked the work detail, but you're trying to sleep in the daytime. It was pretty bad. It was like sleep deprivation torture. Could not stand it. Tried to get off of that shift, but I couldn't. It was actually going to slow me down from getting to pre-release, so I bit the bullet and went through it. And the showers there were just absolutely terrible. They were, and I don't think it was as much the setup of the shower, but the minimum mentality. A lot of these guys in there who were in minimum just didn't have any respect. They didn't come from a place where you get chopped up for saying the wrong thing to somebody. I mean, nope, free helicopter ride. There he goes, shock trauma, and they carried it like it was summer camp at points, which is very frustrating coming from a place where the average time per inmate when I walked through the door all those years ago was 21 years. 22 years. I had 21, and I thought I was coming in with a big number, and I realized I was like, wow, I'm actually below average in here, and I thought 21 was like some big number. So it was a terrible, terrible place to be because of the mentality, and this is why. When you go into the showers in this minimum institution, you would have guys that would take their chair and they would set it up on the wall. There was like a divider wall when you could walk into the area where you get cleaned up, and they would put that chair up there. Well, that was the like hanging a tie on a doorknob kind of thing, or putting a sock out there. It meant you were in there playing with yourself or playing with somebody else. And it was an absolutely disrespectful situation. It happened so much. And there's several of us, we just wanted to fight these guys, but it was like, man, it'll make your blood boil. You're trying to use a shower and somebody's in there, playing with their little ding-a-ling for 35 minutes. Everybody out there sweating. So it would get handled usually, but when I would come off the detail 4 in the morning, 4:30 a.m., and we'd find guys in there, got the chairs up, me and my buddies coming off from our shift, we're getting a shower. So my boy, he was hilarious. He's like, man, we going in, Holmes. Come on. I was like, all right, let's do it. So we just walk up in there and be like, hey, man, you see the chair? Be like, man, you better put that thing away. And it was pretty funny the way this one guy handled it. But just total disrespect. And there was a lot of that in there. And it just made me want to go back. That, amongst other things, made me want to go back to maximum security. So I bit the bullet, finished up my time at minimum, and ended up going off to a pre-release unit, which was really cool as far as like doing jail time. I mean, it was a 64-man dorm, and there's 3 of those in the place, but we could go outside just about whenever you wanted to. I mean, the doors were open, so you could just walk out. There was no fences. I mean, it was a secluded spot. Several acres back way off the road in the middle of nowhere, and go out, lift weights, play basketball, horseshoes, all that kind of stuff, walk around the track. I mean, it was if you got to do time, it was a spot to be. And the showers here were great because they were like high powered jet stream. You could hit this lever and it would toggle like the heat just a little bit. So I was like, all right, you had a little bit of control over it. They were more spread out. It was a much larger area where you could go into, and it was the place to be if you had to get cleaned up. And one of the better aspects of the pre-release shower was everybody was about to go home. People didn't want a lot of problems. A lot of guys who were, let's just say, extraordinarily horny and couldn't keep it in their pants up the road, they knew they were about to go home, so you didn't see as much of that kind of activity. And that was a blessing because you could go into the situation not feeling like someone's going to pop around the corner doing something really, really whack, or you're going to have to defend yourself if somebody tries you. The chances were much less. So there was an actual atmosphere of like, it was more peaceful. It was a little bit calmer. And we're not talking like some day spa, but as far as prison standards go, it was much more peaceful. On top of that, there was a area just outside of this, and they had it was like an in-between area where you could get cleaned up, and then people weren't sitting on top of each other. It was really cool. And one of the funniest things I remember from from that spot was people always want something for free, like when you're getting out of the shower. Hey, man, let me get a shot of that. Go ahead, let me get a squirt of that Jergens or whatever you got over there. And I'll never forget this one guy. It was hilarious. The dude kept hounding him. Come on, man. Let me get a squirt of that Jergens. Come on, man. My skin, I need it. And he was like, all right, I'll tell you what. $1 a squirt. But I squirt it. Oh, man, come on. You got to let me do better. Come on, man. He's like, nah, that's the deal. $1 a squirt. I squirt. One of the places I did not have the opportunity to take a shower was in Supermax. I have been to and through Supermax 6 different times, and it's a whole different beast. This place is designed to take your hope, your possibilities, and you're just stuffed away. There is no movement. You're in your cell all the time. And as I was passing through, there's no movement. So the way that the showers work in there, from what I had seen and from other guys that I knew who did extended periods, 6 months to a year in Supermax for a lot of violations, fighting, just real violent dudes. They would tell me about it. I was like, man, what was it like in the showers up there? How did that work out? I said, well, if you were really, really a security threat to them, they would bring these mobile shower units to your cell door, and it would kind of go up and cover the area, and then they would pop your door, and you could go into it, and this thing didn't move. Like, it was locked down and clamped on. They had all these procedures for it, and you would take your shower right outside your cell door, and you didn't get long, and then you go right back into your cell, and that's it. So there's like no movement if you're really a security threat to them. It's something that I didn't ever get to do, thankfully, but it's interesting that that's the answer for some people, is they have to bring the shower to you because you can't even come out of your cell. In Supermax, just like in other institutions, you can have certain amounts of freedom and privilege granted or revoked from you, just depending on what you're doing. So not everybody had the shower that would come door to door. Some people had the stalls on the tier, which were very small, and they had locked cage doors on them, and they would have like a little port for you to be able to stick your hands in, handcuffed. So you would stick your hands behind you, get cuffed, come out of the cell. They would walk you down, put you into the shower. You got your stuff. You didn't have like a big shower grip like you would in like a regular prison, I guess. So you'd have maybe some soap and shampoo, nothing crazy. And they would put you in there, lock the door, you stick your hands back out, they would uncuff you, then you had a few moments. So it was completely controlled movement. I just thought I'd add the Supermax shower because it was something that was pretty wild, even though I didn't actually ever take one in there. A buddy of mine, he did 6 months in Supermax, and he was telling me some horror stories. We used to sit back and rap about all kinds of things, and he told me, he was like, man, you get extorted in there. And I was like, what? Not me. And he's like, bro, you don't even know. And, man ain't going to carry me like that. That's what you're thinking. And then we all say this stuff, and he's like, listen, man, if the guy down at the end cell right next to the shower, if he wants something from you and you don't give it to him, they're going to doo-doo you down. They're going to throw dookie all over you, and it's right after you come out of the shower. And the police are not going to take you back into it. That's it. So the guy threatened him. He was like, hey, man, you going to get me $20 of commissary every week, or I'm gonna go ahead and throw this cup on you, dog. He said, man, I ain't got it like that, man. I barely got a couple dollars coming in, this and that. He said, man, well, then you're going to get it. He goes, listen, how about this? I'll get you, you like Jolly Ranchers? Well, yeah, I like them. Let me get you like 2 packs of Jolly Ranchers. How's that work? So you got to negotiate, man. It's a lot of things can be negotiated. And they actually became buddies afterwards because you would holler through the vents and talk to each other. And so he was like, he wasn't getting me for no 20 a week, but I was giving him some Jolly Ranchers just to avoid that because he got other people before. What these guys would do was they would use the bathroom into a cup and they stick it up under the heater in there. And the heater's built into the wall, and it would just percolate. However disgusting that has to be, they would do it, and it would just sit there and get funky. And you're not talking about for like a couple of days or something. I mean, they would let it sit for weeks. They'd make their point. It's like some of these guys were there for years. So they would go ahead and percolate a nice cup for you if you didn't give them what they wanted. Or at least work with them in some kind of way. So I guess if you're going to Supermax, try to get the one right next to the shower so nobody else can get you. But whether or not you extort them, I wouldn't be throwing the doo-doo on people. That's just me. That's not in me. I'm not about that. But that's what happens. Well, if you made it this far, I appreciate you sticking around. Even if you didn't like what I have to say, thank you for giving me a shot. And I hope you did like the video. If you did, cool. If you got any situations or stories from an experience you or somebody else that went through when they went to prison or county jail, shower type stuff, drop a comment, man. I'd be interested to know just how things work in other places. It really does broaden my perspective. I've said it before, but it's true. It makes me, at points, I'm more grateful for where I was than a lot of places. And then other times I'm like, well, dang, I wish I could have had it like that, because there's ups and downs to every institution that you're at. And as always, the wise man does not get himself into what the smart man has to get himself out of.